talk today is about duality. And we, in this culture, are really caught in duality. This is my little stick I'm making here. Don't get caught in duality. We need to go to oneness. Anyway, I want to take us to a teaching of the medicine wheel. It's a sacred teaching that people, around Native America know, and it's got lots and lots of layers of teaching that have going on with it. But distracted here. But I'm going to just focus on one part of the teaching of the medicine wheel. So this right here is kind of a picture that we'll use. We start in the West. This is the Lakota tradition. We start in the West. We go around. And then we go up to the north, the dark night, the winter. And we make a cross through the center. We take that wisdom of the north, the night, and we take it into the south, the midday. The sunshine, summer. And then we come around to the west, and we take this from the west, the dark, the sunset, over to the sunrise. So then we have that complete circle, and that idea of bringing things from darkness to light. And it's also important to bring things, so these are the inner realms, like the west and the north represent the inner realms on this wheel of life. So it's important to take those things that are within us, that we work with in the west, in that place of introspection, and we let sit, our dreams and our inner work that we do, and the good dreams and things that come to us in the west, that we sit within the north before we birth them into the east and the south. But the ultimate thing is that we do want to take them into the light. So what does this have to do with duality? Well, one of the teachings of the medicine wheel is that every point of view has validity. So if you're sitting in the south, you're a little kid, the south is the place of the child, and you're a little kid, your point of view is just as valid as the elder in the north. Your point of view as an adult is just as valid as the infant. Everybody's point of view has validity. There's no sort of hierarchy in all of that. We listen to everybody's point of view. If we take that teaching is not just about the adult and the child. It's about generally everybody's point of view, wherever people are coming from. If we can listen to one another and have our own point of view, not lose our own point of view, but be totally open to this point of view, and that point of view, and that point of view, and that point of view, with an open heart and really curious. A, it's amazing what you learn. B, it's amazing what it does for relationships. And C, I think it's the solution to world truth, to war, and it's the solution to bring world peace, world truth. But that's true too, because you think you know the truth, but the truth really comes from the infinite, the divine, the great mystery, Wakatanka, the great spirit. That's in the infinite. So how can any one of us know the truth? Any truth we know is just a piece. It's just a perception on the medicine wheel. Okay, so let's talk about some truths, right? And so one of the things that we get polarized with is like positivism. Be positive. And I talked a little bit about that when I talked about dreaming the good dream in these times, and the instructions I got from Spirit when I picked up my pipe in 1999. They said in the times that are coming, it's really important to dream the good dream. And that's good. But I also talked about acknowledging the darkness, acknowledging the negative. So sometimes what happens in this culture is we tend to get polarized. We tend to get really locked in either or, right or wrong, instead of staying open to all the different points of view. And in actuality, we want to honor the darkness and bring light to it. And so we want to dance this balance, the opposites. It makes this, and then we bring infinity to it, as you can see. It's a dance with the opposites. Everybody wants to be centered. We do meditation, spiritual practice to stay centered as much as we can. Because when life throws us out here, or even out there, then we have somewhere to come back to. We've got a strong center with spiritual practice, with work that we've done within ourselves, with good love and relationships, and all the things we do to stay centered, then we have something to come back to. But in fact, we're meant to go out and explore these different parts of the medicine wheel. We're not meant to just stay in the center all the time. We're meant to get thrown out and have these life experiences. So if you get thrown out in left field, don't beat yourself up for it. It's all great. It's all part of it. Just do what you got to do in left field. Enjoy left field as much as you can and bring the opposite to it to balance it. So one of the things that I think things I find people getting dogmatic about or feeling like, oh, this is the truth, is well, let's talk a little bit about positivism a little bit more. Is that sometimes when people are in a really hard place and they're feeling really down, and somebody's in this really positive place, well, you have to think positive. If you think positive, everything's going to turn out. But what if you're in one of these underworld places where no matter what you're doing, nothing's turning out? Your family members got sick and died, and they were really ill, and you've had a lot of losses, and then you lost your house, and this is really happening to people right now. People are losing their houses, and people are getting sicker because the environment is not, guess what, not just making the polar bears sick, and the environment is not just affecting the animals, it's affecting us as well. We're seeing people getting sicker, we're seeing weirder diseases, we're seeing more cancer. So if somebody's out here and they're really struggling, we're also seeing more depression. So if somebody's in this midst of depression, telling them to be positive, what is that saying? It's saying that where you are now is not okay. Your point of view is wrong and it's not okay. So what message are you really? Is that be positive message becomes a negative message, really? So when we get too polarized, sometimes we're like kind of going to the opposite inadvertently and actually sending a negative message. What we want to do is be able to honor everybody's point of view. So that person who is in pain needs to honor, I lost my pointer stick. That person who's in pain needs to be honoring and bringing love to their pain. And when they're doing that, they are bringing light to it. But they don't need somebody over here telling them they just need to be more positive, because that's immediately telling them they're wrong. Does that make sense? So another thing that I find people became very popular, probably in the last 40 years or so, is this idea that we create our own reality. And that one always makes me laugh, because if you look back, in European philosophers and so forth, there's been this argument about, destiny versus, free will, and whether we create our own reality or whether, we have a destiny. And it's been argued for centuries. But now there are a number of people, particularly in the New Age movement, who say you create your own reality like it's a fact. God has spoken. It is the only truth, and that is the only way. It's like hilarious. And it's really very much of a Western thing. I also think it's very much of a sort of white middle class kind of thing. Only somebody who comes from a culture that has really had the ability to be as self-determining as we have been allowed to be in the West. We've been very lucky in terms of how we've been able to really make success for ourselves and so forth. In the East, people are much more into destiny and what your fate is and your destiny. And if you study some of the philosophies from the East, they will talk about destiny. The I Ching, the Book of Changes, the famous I Ching that comes back and talks about Confucius, and also talks about the cycles of life, much like the medicine wheel, even talks about the various directions. Talks about, you'll consult that I Ching. It's an oracle that you consult. And when you consult it, it may say, oh, the time is good, move forward. Or it may say, ooh, the dark powers are coming stronger right now. It's better to yield, to hold back, no blame. So there's this whole idea of fate. So there's where we come back to this thing with the medicine wheel, a teaching. It's like we get polarized when we say, well, it's just destiny. Or we say, oh, well, you created this, you did all this. We get very polarized when we don't match what we believe with the opposite. And if you really want to get to the center of truth, what you want to do is take whatever you believe and say, wow, I wonder what its opposite is, and meditate with that. And meditate with that. It's just like even being very loving. Sometimes you'll meet people who are trying to be very loving. Of course, we all want to be loving. We all want to be compassionate. But sometimes those people begin to lose power. They're so nicey and sweet, and they'll never raise their temper. It's all about, oh my God, you never want to be angry, and da-da-da. They can get run over, It's like sometimes you need to stand up and say, no, I don't think so. With all due respect, I think you're a wonderful person, but right now, no, I'm not putting up with that. So, and that sometimes can be the most loving thing we can do. We know that with children. Like if you don't put boundaries on children and you don't get stern with them once in a while, why they're not, you know, that's not loving at all. You're not teaching them. You're not giving them firm boundaries. So that's a solution to duality. But it's one of the things that I notice in this culture is one of the reasons we get polarized is we tend to think that we tend to get on one side of the medicine wheel or one thing, and we're not honoring the opposite. And it's when we bring the opposites together that we come into oneness. And the dance of the opposites is beautiful. And guess what, ladies? Sometimes even the men are right. Bless you all. Home and talk to you. May beauty surround you.